Hi everyone, this video is about changing a tire. Before we start, I want to stress that safety is our primary concern. If you experience a flat tire while you're on the road, make sure that you get the car to somewhere safe before attempting to change the tire. If you're not comfortable with changing a tire, if you don't think you can do it, if you run into some snags, do not hesitate to get help. Contact the Auto Club or someone else who can change the tire for you, because a tire that is improperly changed is extremely dangerous. Okay, so you have to locate your tire changing equipment on your car. In most cars, it's located in the trunk of the vehicle, although on some vans and SUVs, the tire itself will actually be underneath, and the jack and other things you need will be hidden somewhere inside the vehicle where you don't see it on a regular basis. In this car, it's all located underneath the mat in the trunk. So you look in there and you can see that there's this styrofoam sort of helmet thing with all of the equipment inside it, and you can unscrew this before you lift it out. You take it all out in one piece. So I'll do that in a second. I also want to show you something you need to do for safety's sake. You know how in the shop, if we were going to lift up a vehicle, we would do two really important things. The first of which is to block the tires. And if you're stranded by the side of the road, you might not have a set of wheel chocks, but I would suggest that a nice size rock or anything you can find, really, that you can use to immobilize the car while you jack it up will make things a lot safer for you. So because we're doing the passenger side front tire and I'm on a slope that goes upward here in my driveway, I'm going to chock the wheel behind the driver's side rear tire. And that'll just prevent the car from rolling backwards while I lift it up. So that's something you can do to increase safety. In the shop, we would always use a jack stand while working underneath a vehicle. If you're stranded by the side of the road, you probably don't have that option. So we're not going to work underneath the vehicle. At no time during this tire changing service are we going to place any part of our body where it could be harmed if the vehicle fell off the jack. We're going to take every precaution we can to keep that from happening, but if it does, we don't want to be hurt. Okay guys, I've got the tools out of the trunk, and it comes with everything you need to change a tire. Nothing fancy, nothing's electric, nothing's automatic. You have to use your hand power to do it, but here are the tools. This is the jack. It's called a scissor jack, and it's designed to lift the car up. The pinch weld, which I've shown you guys in the shop, where you put the auto lift pad, this goes there with the scissor jack. And this is the handle of the scissor jack. They vary a little bit, but really what they are is a twisty thing. So I'll put it through the eye of the jack here, and then to lower and raise the jack, I just turn it clockwise and counterclockwise, and it'll lift the car. And it will lift the car really easily, surprisingly. There's a big long Allen key. This is specific to Volkswagen. Audi has them as well. You'll see that in a little bit. This is the lug wrench, which I put over the lug bolt on the car and use it to loosen them. It's a little bit longer, gives me some leverage on them. And this is the lug nut key, or the lug bolt key in the case of Volkswagen, that I showed you before. It's got a hex head on one side that goes in the lug wrench, and then the special key that fits in the lug is at the other end. There's a special screwdriver. If you look at the one end of it, it's plastic, but it's got an indentation for the hex head of the lug bolt. We've got this big eye bolt. We won't be using it today. The eye bolt is designed for towing and rescue. So if you get your car stuck in a ditch on a snowy day, you take this eye bolt, you thread it into a special hole in the bumper, and this gives the tow operator or whoever's rescuing you something that they can tie the tow strap or the rescue chain onto to haul your car out of the ditch. We won't be using that today, so make sure you don't lose it. And the last tool I've got, I've never seen one of these before. This is a special little bent piece of wire that I will use to remove the hubcap of the car. This is the tire we're changing. It's on the front passenger side of the car, and we're going to pretend that it's flat. It's not flat, and I could have let the air out of it, but I didn't really feel like it. So this is the special tool I told you about. This is the tiny little wire thing, and it's used fits in this little slot here, and you give it a pull, and it removes the hubcap from the car, which is great. Now I use the hubcap, especially when I'm on the road or somewhere in the field and I need to put things. I put it nearby so that I can use it for the lug bolts. Okay, next step, loosen off the lug bolts. Do not lift up the car before you loosen the lug bolts, because you need to have the wheel stationary so that when you yank on it, the wheel just doesn't spin on you. So I'm going to take my lug wrench tool here, place it over the lug nuts. Now there's 5 of them, and I'm going to pull upwards to turn the lug counterclockwise. It's not actually a lug nut on this car, it is a lug bolt. I pull upwards and it loosens off. Now it's very important that you do every second one. Don't go around in a circle, do every second one so that the aluminum of the rim gets loosened off and tightened up evenly around there. That way you don't get any deflection or bending of the rim. So 2, 3, 4, and I've made it so that the last one is the one that I need the special key for. Right here, here's the key. Place it on the wrench, place it over the lug nut. You'll see it's a special pattern on it, and it can now be loosened. Okay, now these things, the torque specification on them is somewhere just north of 100 pounds, I think. So they're pretty tight, and once you get your tire changed and you get home to a safe location, you'll want to check these with a torque wrench. But you won't have one with you when you're stuck by the side of the road. So, you know, we're just going to make them tight. All right, so once I've got them started loosening, I can take my special screwdriver with the plastic end on it here, and I can use it to wind off the rest of the bolts. If they're not loose enough, you can go back to the big tire iron. Okay, so once I've got them loosened a little bit, it's time to actually lift up the car. Don't take the bolts off while the car is sitting on the driveway. Now you got to lift it up. So take your jack, place it under the pinch weld of the car so that the top piece here cradles the pinch weld. And then tighten it gently by moving the eye bolt here, or the eye nut, by hand. You can see I'm just using 2 fingers, and you can see the car start to lift up. Once you've got it started, make sure it's placed in there. Make sure that the chock in the back is securely placed. The car's gear indicator is in park if it has an automatic transmission, and the emergency brake is set. When all those things are done, you can make sure, place your handle there, no part of you goes under the car, and just by twisting it, you can lift the whole car up. You have to get it up far enough so that the wheel is completely clear of the ground. So this quadrant or corner of the car is entirely supported by the scissor jack. Now, if your tire is flat, it will come up faster. But when you go to put the new tire on, you will see that you'll have to jack it up a little further, because a flat tire is narrower here at the bottom than a full tire. But I'm just taking this one off and I'm going to put it directly back on. So I jack it up until the car is completely off the ground. Then I'm going to take this handle off just to make it, you know, safer, so that I don't bump it and nothing happens. I never stick any part of myself under the car once I've got it at this point. But you can see I put my screwdriver under here. It's completely off the ground by about 1 inch. Okay, so now's the time that you can go and loosen off the rest of these bolts by hand. Whether you use this or you use the fancy little screwdriver, but once you got them loosened off a couple of turns, you can usually use your fingers. And remember, you need the special tool to undo the special lug wrench, or the lug bolt. Okay. So now I can just loosen them off. Remember what I said about the hubcap, keeping it nearby? It's just handy. It stops you from dropping the lug bolts and having them roll away on the road. Okay, and once you've got all 5 off, as I do now, it's time to remove the tire. Make sure there's nothing in your way to give you trouble, and you can just pull it off. There we go. So, take the flat tire, roll it away. Okay, it's out of sight. Bring back the spare tire. I didn't get the spare tire out of the trunk because I'm a little bit lazy today. Pretend this is my spare tire, and I'm just going to reinstall it here on the spindle. That's what this is called, that holds it securely. You can see the brakes of the car and the rotor, the shock strut assembly, all of that stuff. You need to take the tire off to access to repair. So in the auto shop, often the first thing we do to a car, take the tires. But you're beside the side of the road. You don't have to fix any of those things. You just have to get the new tire on. Now, if you have lug nuts, the studs will stick out, and you set it up so that the studs come through the tire. In the case of this car, I don't have lug nuts, I have lug bolts, so I have to line the wheel up so that I can see into the threaded portion, and when I can turn it around like so, and when I get those internal threads, the holes inside, lined up, I can start by putting one of the bolts in. Now, I always put one of the bolts in finger tight. This just means that I've got it and the tire is not going to move. Then I can take the other ones, same thing. Finger tighten them. No need to go crazy because you're going to use the wrench to tighten them up further. Just tighten them up, make sure that they're threaded correctly. If you cross thread it, you will not be able to do it with your hand. You'll have to use the wrench, you'll force it, and you will ruin the spindle or the lug bolt, or in the worst case scenario, you'll ruin both. So, be very careful, make sure it's straight, and make sure you put it in just hand tight. If you got to use a wrench on it after only 1 or 2 turns, it's wrong. So go back, thread it again. If you're still having trouble, sometimes it just doesn't seem to want to work, just put a different lug bolt in that hole. Sometimes that makes the difference. If it still won't work, it's probably something to do with the angle you've got the tire at, and you can jog it, or you can even just take the whole thing off and start over again. Usually, however, and especially in the case of lug nuts where the studs are sticking through, they'll just thread in easily first time. So thread them all in, and then you take the wrench and you do your first tightening. You don't make them super tight. You just make sure they're snug the first time around so that the wheel is held in the correct position, but you're not cranking it down with all the force in the world. You're just, you can see, I'm using one hand and I'm just snugging them up. The reason for this is I'm going to put the car's weight back on the tire. But before I do that, I want to make sure that the tire is in the right position. If it's not, and I tighten them up, and the tire is not absolutely snug against the spindle, it won't spin true when I go on the road. It'll create vibrations and a dangerous situation. Okay, so I've got them all just a little snug. Move the tire back and forth. It doesn't wiggle. So now I'm ready to lower the car back onto the road surface. Now that's just the reverse of the other procedure. Put the jack handle on, lower the jack by turning that counterclockwise, and just take it all the way down so that the jack is no longer supporting the car. The car will be sitting on the wheel. Now you're ready for the final tightening. And the reason I do this is the same reason that we did not lift the car up before we loosened the lug nuts. You need the weight of the car to ensure that the wheel doesn't spin as you tighten and loosen the lug nuts. Now I know it's in park. This is a front wheel drive car, so the transmission theoretically should not allow the wheel to turn. And in the back wheels, the emergency brake shouldn't allow it to turn. But neither of those things is as effective as having the weight of the car on the road surface. Okay, so now I take my lug wrench, and in reverse of the procedure I did before, I'm going to tighten every second one. Now, the torque specification on this, different for every car, is pretty high. You know, somewhere around 100 pounds of force before you loosen the bolts. Don't go crazy. 100 pounds is maybe not as much as you think, but you know, if you're leaning your weight on this short handle, it's probably tight enough. So do every second one. This one, skip one. Do the next one. Skip one. Do the next one. Okay, the next one I encounter is the special one. I need the key for it. Okay, now make sure the key is well engaged before you tighten this one, because if you don't, it could slip off and you could hurt yourself. So I'll go till I engage the key. There we go. Notice the car moving back and forth. I am putting a fair amount of force on this. And then the fifth one, same thing. Now, for the sake of safety, I'll just go around one more time and make sure I didn't miss one. I know I can count to 5, I know you can count to 5, but your safety depends on this, and the safety of your family and other people on the road, so you want to make sure you do it right. Okay, so I've made the rounds. I've done all 5. Now the first thing I'm going to do when I get home, or I get my car to a service center, is I'm going to get a torque wrench and I'm going to check them myself, or I'm going to get a mechanic to check them. And then I'm going to drive the car for a couple of days, and then I'm going to repeat that procedure. Because it's really important that these lug bolts are torqued to the correct specification. If they loosen off while you are driving, you might experience wheel loss, which is a life-threatening situation. Now, in the case of this, I put the regular car tire back on. And the spare tire for this car is actually a full-size spare. It's the same tire as this is, it's just got a slightly different looking rim. If your car has what we call a temporary spare, or as is known colloquially as a donut, which is a more narrow tire and sometimes a little shorter, it's not designed to be used on the road as a regular driving tire. It's designed so that you can get it to a garage or a tire repair center, and they can fix your tire, and you put it back on the trunk for the next time you have a problem. There's a speed written on the temporary tire or on the donut that you're not allowed to go faster than. It's usually 40 or 45 miles an hour. Respect that limit. It is not designed for long-term use. It's not designed for high-speed use. If the road conditions are wet or snowy, you need to reduce your speed even more. That's really important for safety. Okay, so I have changed the tire on this car. I'm confident that it's snug enough, it's safe enough. I can put the hubcap back on the car, and I'm all done. So that's it. That's how you can change a tire with the stuff they give you. I'm going to do my minivan in a lesson later this week because it's a little bit different, but the principles and procedures are all the same. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.